Okay, back with the second of the two videos. So if the first part is finding the right fit for college, second part is and affording it. I'm going to talk a little bit about 4 rules of figuring out the money situation when it comes to college. Remember, this is just my 2 cents. Shouldn't, overvalue my opinion. Of course, your parents, advisors, counselors, etc. can be really helpful in thinking through this. And of course, understanding things like the FAFSA process, how your legal status might affect you, etc., is all important parts of this. So let's look through my 4 rules. First rule, paying for college is like buying a car. And what I mean by that is the sticker price is not the actual price. One thing that always bums me out a little bit is I'll run into students who will say like, oh, I'd love to go to that school, but I can't afford it. But they haven't actually done any research to figure out if they can afford it other than going to the website and seeing the price on the website. And it's really, really important to know that most maybe even students don't pay full price when they go to a particular school. So the way it happens is that schools have these sticker prices because there are some students out there who come from a family situation such that they can, in fact, afford sticker price. So they apply to the school, and it says your expected family income is the whole thing, $75,000 a year, etc. Expected family contribution, and you pay the $75,000 plus the room and board, etc. And it's a little unfair, maybe a lot unfair, that this actually helps those students get into that school, that they get a little bit of an advantage in the selection process because they're going to want to admit a certain number of students who can pay full price, because then what they do is they use those students who can pay full price to help afford the ability to offer other students scholarships to make the college more affordable to the other students. But most, at least many students, don't pay sticker price and in fact often pay considerably less, maybe half, maybe less than half of the advertised sticker price. So it's really, really important that you not look at the sticker price of a school and then rule it out immediately. I'm going to show you, after this PowerPoint, I'm going to show you some website resources, and then separate from the video, I'm going to list them in a Google Doc so that you can go and find them all on your own. I'm going to show you some resources you can use to find the actual price for colleges and how to find good values. Rule number 2, college is a marketplace. So what I mean by that is that you are competing to get into colleges. But what a lot of students don't realize is colleges are also competing for you. So if you apply to several schools that you get into, they are going to compete for you. And of course, the better you are compared to their average student, the more they're going to try to pull you away from other schools. So what happens is a school might say, or usually a private school, let's pick Loyola DePaul, they might try to become competitive with UIC or Northeastern Illinois, who sticker prices are way lower than Loyola DePaul, by offering you merit scholarships to bring their prices down closer to Northeastern and UIC, so that you then aren't choosing between those 2 schools based on price, but are on other things. So that's what merit scholarships really are, is they are a recruiting tool used by a college. So one way to make that work for you is that you might apply to schools of various levels of selectivity. So you might apply, like you might have heard this in high school, might apply to some reach schools where it's not clear whether you'll even get in. And then you might apply to a slightly less selective school and a slightly less selective school, and then a not very selective school. And what you're going to find is that the most selective school that lets you in might not offer you any merit aid. But a less selective school that lets you in might offer you a lot of merit aid to pull you away from the more selective school. And so it's helpful to not only apply to reach schools, but to apply sort of up and down that level of selectivity. And this goes hand in hand with what I was talking about with College Fit. If you can find a kind of college that really appeals to you in terms of size, geography, vibe, then you can look for versions of that that are more or less selective than each other and apply sort of up and down that ladder to try to play this merit scholarship game. Okay, rule number 3, understand the sources of scholarships. It's helpful to understand the difference between merit-based and need-based aid. So merit-based aid is about this competition game that colleges play where they give money to you based on GPA, test scores, rank, likelihood that you can get into some other school, that kind of thing. There's also need-based aid, and those two are not related. Need-based aid is scholarships and grants which are connected to your family income or what they call expected family contribution, and they use things like tax returns, income, investments to figure that out. A lot of students at Harper are not necessarily considered high need students because there's this weird gap between being considered high need and really being able to afford college. But there are a lot of students at Harper and elsewhere who would be what we call high need, high merit. So high need means low family income, and high merit means very attractive academically, high GPA, high test score, etc. And students like that who have high need and can also get into highly selective schools might be surprised at just how low costs can become at some schools, even highly competitive schools. So it's something to keep in mind if that's you. It's also really important to understand that much of the money that students use to afford school in terms of scholarships does not come from the schools themselves, and many students don't know this. Many students look at the scholarships offered by the school and think that's it, but there's a lot of money out there that comes from outside organizations. The thing that's hard here is that often your scholarship financial aid package just is like part of the reply from your school. You've got to be proactive and go out there and hunt for these scholarships for outside organizations. And then when you do that, it can be time consuming and take you a lot of time and effort to apply. But you'd be amazed at how much of this money goes unclaimed. So often the effort is worth it. And often it's smarter to try to get lots of $500, $1,000 scholarships than to put all your time and energy applying for a $50,000 scholarship that only 5 people in the country are going to get. So you got to know how to allocate your resources, but know that that's out there. Fourth and final rule is about debt, of course, right? Student loans, very much in the news. Student loan forgiveness is a controversial topic, right? No one wants to graduate with loans, but it is helpful to know that some level of debt might be sustainable for some students. And it depends, first of all, on how much debt, but second of all, on your career trajectory. If you are going into a field where there's high demand and high income, then there's a high likelihood that you're going to be able to afford to pay back those loans in a way that's not going to make you miserable for the next 30 years. So I've got an example of myself here, right? I graduated with $40,000 in debt. So I went to graduate school and I went to a PhD program, and PhD program pays you to go. So I didn't have to take debt on to go there, but I had some debt before I got into the PhD program. But I graduated my PhD program with $40,000 of student loans. And that's, $40,000 is a lot less than $100,000 of debt. But in a lot of ways, that was a more reckless decision than someone going to med school and taking on $100,000 of debt. And the reason why is that there's actually a very low likelihood that I was going to be able to do what I do for the rest of my life. And so I could have been struggling to pay that $40,000 of debt off by doing what I used to do and working in bars and restaurants and being an adjunct teacher, teaching part-time and trying to sort of make ends meet by cobbling together a couple of jobs, right? I'm very fortunate that I got the job that I did. But $100,000 of debt for medical school, if you're going into a high profession, high demand profession that's high income, very likely you'll be able to afford those loans. So my advice on the debt, you should always be conscious of debt, but you know, the ideal of having zero debt regardless of your career after college might be one that you should think more carefully about. Again, this is not a decision, you know, often this is a decision that you need to make with your parents, and so I'm just one person here. All right, for the rest of this recording, I'm going to stop the PowerPoint, so it's going to look a little janky for a minute. I'm going to show you some websites, and then I'm going to provide those links in a separate document. Here we go. All right, let's get rid of that one. First thing I want you to see is this. So this website is NPR Planet Money, what you'll actually pay at 1,550 colleges. And they have this tool where you can type in the name of a college and it'll show you how much you'll actually pay based on your household income. So Amherst College is a highly selective, probably one of the most highly selective liberal arts colleges in the country. Sticker price is quite high. But if you look, and this is, they're contrasting this with Ohio State, so state school in Ohio, and I assume this is in-state tuition. For that, you'll notice that for families making between $30,000 and $48,000, the schools are roughly the same cost. But look, Ohio State is actually more expensive than Amherst for households making between $48,000 and $75,000. They have the same cost for households making $75,000 to $110,000, and then Amherst gets way more expensive for wealthier families making over $110,000 a year. But what's really interesting is really down here, the cost is quite low for lower income students because these are high need, high merit students. This tool actually doesn't seem to be working. So there's some other tools I'm going to show you that are going to help with this. First one I'll show you is right here. So the U.S. Department of Education has a net price calculator center, and you can type in a school name like DePaul. Sorry. Why is it not working? Working a minute ago. Let's use Loyola. And what these do is it takes you to the school's net price calculator. And I kind of want to go to I want to go back to the DePaul one because it was easier to use when I did this as a trial run. Okay. So I'll show you something here. We live in state. I'm going to say I went to Schaumburg. Oops. Schaumburg High. And I'm going to come in as a transfer, so I'm going to be 20. I want to live on campus. I'm not an athlete. I'm not going to leave my name. Now notice, estimated net price over here right now is $62,000 for that's the sticker, $62,000. Now I'm going to say I'm a pretty good smarty pants. I got a 30 on my ACT, and I got a 1300 on my SAT. So notice that right off the top, I was given $8,000 off that. Now, if I had, let's go back here. This is what I'm talking about with the game of competitiveness. See that? Now with a 32 ACT, a 1350 SAT, and 3.9 GPA, now they're giving me $23,000 of merit. That's before we even look at aid. I'm going to run out of time on this video, so I'm going to come back with the third video with some more resources for you. All right, cool.